Hello and welcome to the joy of linters, the most basic talk you will probably see in the GopherCon today, or maybe the whole GopherCon, I don't know. So we'll be talking about good engineering practices and how you can boost your productivity with linters. So we'll be talking about how to start with linters, how to configure them, how to use the linters, how not to lose your mind, which is actually a really big issue if you want to do linters in the company, and how we in FormFree run linters. So, as Matt butchered my name is Artur, but he went with like Spanish pronunciation of it, so Artur. I'm a senior Go engineer at FormFree, if you can't say. I do guitars, I do music in general, I do a lot of food, I do Go. And then if you want to read my ramblings, here's the page I write my ramblings in. So, yeah. So, why won't you get a linter? Because my friend got a code base, man, and he hates that thing. And he literally tells me every day. He says, man, I really got to lint this thing in the best kind of way. So, can anybody tell me which song was that ripped off? There's a song by The Offspring. Listen to the song. It's a classic. It's a really nice one, and I wanted to make it really bad. So, what is a linter? And I had this, and then the keynotes literally stole my idea, so sorry. The word itself originates from 1879, but we don't care about that. We care about the definition from 1978 of the tool called lint, invented by Stephen C. Johnson. And then the linter was a tool that allowed you to analyze your C code in order to find the compiler optimizations. And over the time, it grew bigger, it grew nicer, it could tell you, hey, your code is rubbish, and fix it. Or your code is really great, and you have nothing to worry about. And the reason why I made this talk in the first place was because finding a Go code base without any linters whatsoever is way too easy. It shouldn't be this way. And you might ask right now, do I need linters? Well, yes. So the reason is, imagine you're flying a plane where every single pilot has its own way of running things. So there's one pilot sitting in, and he's flying really nicely and stuff, and then the other one in, and it goes down. Because he felt like, yeah, let's YOLO it, it's going to be nice, it's going to be fun, but it's not. So when we start thinking about linters as productivity tools, and then we configure them this way because it's not easy to overrun it a bit, our productivity goes upwards, us as a team and as engineers. The longevity of the code grows, because you don't have to worry about your code getting stale, your code getting bad and smelly. And then you get more insights on how your code will perform on the platform in the future. So going back to the analogy with the airplane thingy, you're not YOLOing your code, you're kind of do-your-wing your code, if that makes sense. From engineering standpoint, if you're a manager, it increases the developer experience within your team. So if you're hiring someone new, if there's a new engineer coming into your company, you don't have to worry about we have 77 microservices, and they have been written in the last 3 years. And then, this was written by one guy, by the other guy, and they all have different ways of how they're writing code. When you have linters, you have 77 microservices, and they all look the same. The functionality changes, but the comprehension bit is way easier to work with. So let's start introducing linters to our code. There's also a song, so read and think about it. So when I get to the linter avenue, meet me by the end of your terminal view. We can lint things over a lit time. Promise you won't step out of line. Any guesses? There's a Welsh singer, Duffy, and she did this song, and it was way nicer with her. But yeah, so for the sake of our talk, I will be focusing mostly on Golang CI lint tool. If there's any maintainers, I'm really sorry. If not, then I'm also sorry, because you will see that on YouTube. So we will start with the configuration bit. So how to group your linters, how to start thinking about them in the first place. So we can divide them into 3 groups. The first one will be the quality bit, so the linters that check if your code will be up to certain standard. Then the, oh my god, no. The security bit, yeah, I do that, so chaos ensures fun bits. The security bit, which is linters that check if your code has any security flaws, because we're only humans, we're not robots, and if we were, we wouldn't be sitting here, so yeah. And then the readability, so the linters that enforce certain style of the code within your code base. You might think that quality and readability goes in pair, and it couldn't be more wrong, because you will see that later with my experiments within my team. The quality not always goes with readability. So the working out linters within your team, it's a really, really tricky bit, because you can go to Golang CI lint, use the default linters, and you don't know what you're actually linting. You're just using something from the internet. Or you can pick everything, and then you still don't know what you're linting because you've picked literally everything. So we have to strive for that bit where you're actually doing things and you understand what you're doing. So this is where we came up with maximum pain theory, which is basically linting without tears. So imagine if you're introducing linters to your team, you're basically a lint master. Let's call it that. I couldn't figure out a better name for that. So you're the one responsible for choosing linters, implementing them, and propagating them across your team. And the bit is, you have to find where your team starts to cry, go a bit more, and then talk about it. It sounds bad, but bear with me. So in our case, when we were introducing linters in FormFree in like more readable, understandable way, we went a bit too far, started talking about it, and then we started tailoring our experience to see if we can go a bit more. Right now, we're in that bit more phase. So if that makes sense, that's great. Basically, introduce your linters, make the team know what you actually introduced and what will be the benefits of it, and then see if they can cope with that in the longer period of time. So we know about linters, we know about the maximum pain theory, and this is really easy. It's like, if you don't know that, that's from 1999 album by Blur, if you didn't know. So, well, my code is well linted, and I'm pins and I'm needles, where I lie and I'm easy, all of the time, but I never sure what I need you. Pleased to meet you. So if Damon Albarn would be a C engineer in 1999, he maybe probably write this. I really doubt it, but who knows? So let's forget about the max pain for a second. And right now we are in this moment when we have to introduce linters into our code base. So let's say you've joined a new company, they don't have any linters, and you have some things. Yeah, you have to write some new stuff, and you have some old stuff. But you go, okay, I'm gonna need some linters first. So there's 2 bits you have to solve. The first one is to figure out what happens when you have a new code base. Because new code base is rather easy if you think about it. You have blank slate, state, card, piece of paper, and then you can do whatever you like. So you introduce the linters, and then you kind of hope that the rest of the team will adhere to those linters and won't turn them off while you work at them. So what I recommend from the start is to have a linter setup with README to go, hey guys, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. Because the worst bit you can do with linters is just yellow it, get off the stage, and everybody cries, and then you're back into max pain theory, but with everybody crying. So when you set up Golang CI lint, you can do a lot of really fun stuff. So for example, you go, actually not for example, this is how it works. So you have a bit with run, so you can tell your linters, hey, lint everything that I have, including tests. Like, everything has to be nice. And then maybe you need to skip something because you use some code generators, and you don't want to be linting code generators because it's useless, and that's a really bad idea. Then, if you use CI/CD pipeline, you can go, maybe I don't want to have any output whatsoever. Maybe I just want to have linters saying, yeah, it works, nay, it doesn't. So you can go and say, hey, print everything that I know, print all the linters that told me, hey, it doesn't work. Then we go into issues and go like CI lint. If the linter allows for it, it can actually fix the issues for you, which is super nice. And then the linter does, book, everything works, everything's fine. And then we get into the linter-specific settings. So in Golang CI lint YAML file, you can specify how you want to tailor the linters. So you can make them harder, you can make them nicer, you can do a lot of stuff. And then we get into pre-existing code base, and this is where the tricky bit starts to actually bite you a bit. Because, so I will need a show of hand. So if you would be introducing linters into the old code base, let's say you've joined the company, raise a hand if you would introduce the linters the same way as we did before. So like, new linter setup, and YOLO it. That's good. It's literally no hands, which is great, because you don't want to be linting the code that has been written backwards, because the business will probably hate you, the guys in your team will probably hate you, and the amount of PRs you will have to raise is astonishing. Been there, done that, never again. So what you can do in Golang CI lint, you can specify from which revision you will start the new linters, and you can specify if the bits of the code that you've written will be linted or not. What happens in the background of this is basically connecting to your Git repository, and it checks within the Git diff if that's the new code. There's no magic involved here. This is how they do it. The package that they use for that is actually pretty neat. So coming back to the pain theory, which we've used a lot within FormFree, we've decided that the linters, given that we had a bit like small linter setup in one of the products, we've decided that we will do the linters introduction in phases. So not everybody have to be like scared. We have tons of new linters and you have to learn how you work with them. But this is, again, communicating with your team. I will talk about that in a second. So we had 3 stages of linting, 3 stages of pain. The first one is lint default. So in lint default, you have all the basics, how the code should look. Nothing really fancy there. Then we went with lint local. So lint local was a few linters more, still not the full-blown thing, but we've started, hey, try this, try if you feel like it. If it's nice, okay. If it's not, then sorry. And then we went with the full-blown thing, which is every linter that we've set up, we've agreed that we'll be using. And this is the thing that we had a deadline. Hey, our CI/CD pipeline will go with the full linter setup, and I will tell you which linters made my team really sad and a bit janky when it comes to my person. So we went, hey, you have 2 weeks, try all the things, try to get accustomed to it, and then we will go with the lint full, because we didn't want to go, let's go with it. So, yeah. But then you start with linting stuff in anger, because linters can wait, and they know it's too late because your code is slipping by. The quality fades away, but don't lint stuff in anger, I heard you say. If you don't know this song, I won't tell you, because the big British battle of 1990-something in Britpop was a big thing, and the Spotify playlist tells you that. So it is always a hard bit when you introduce something new within your company. Doesn't matter if that's technology, doesn't matter if that's linters, doesn't matter if that's, I don't know, bullshit Monday thingy, when you just go with, hey, I've learned something new, and this is my team, and hey, you go. So I can tell you what the trade-offs were that we had to work with. And bear in mind, it's really far-fetched because there's not many trade-offs you have to do when you're introducing a code quality thing. So the trade-off is the team. Because if you don't have a good communication within your team, nothing gets done. I don't know if you noticed in the last 10 years, there was a very big hike in hiring to hire rockstars and wizards. And are you a rock star? Are you coding every day and is your GitHub up to date with everything you do? No, because I have life outside of work. So what I would recommend, instead of thinking about rockstars and wizards, think about rockstars as the whole team. So you want the team to feel like it's, I don't know what's the rock group which has no bad bits in the history, but choose the one that you would like. Then you have the linter officer, so the person who will be introducing linters across the code base. And the tricky bit here is that you will be the one who has to explain why you've chosen the linters. And I've also been there, and if you have to explain, hey, this linter, which allows you to use only 120 characters within the line, is actually good, because if you're using Vim, you like to read stuff, and if you're using anything else, then it curls and stuff. So yeah, it was a tricky bit. And then the actual linters. You would be surprised how many linters are just, hey, here's a linter thing, and use me, because I want to be used. And they have no documentation whatsoever, and then you have to dissolve them from the inside outside. But then, with the actual linters, we start thinking into, hey, what if I have a linting issue that I want to solve, but nobody actually solved it? So this is where we go Intercustom linters. So I don't know if you noticed in the last 25 minutes or so, I really like linters, and I like quality of code to be good, and I like my team to understand what's happening within the code base. So we'll be talking about linter that checks your code if your code has time.sleep in. Really easy, nothing fancy, nothing crazy, but we will get to understand how linters work from the inside out. So what's happening within the linter on the most basic level, they're using two packages, which is GoParser and GoAST. So parser is parsing the input from your Go file, and then the abstract syntax tree is interpreted by AST. So it goes across your Go file and checks for every single thing that you told it to check. But then, if you would like to plug your linter with only those two packages, and you can do that, you can write a proper, nice linter with only those two packages, and then you want to plug them into Golang CLint, Golang CLint will go, hey, but this linter doesn't have a CLI. You can't use it as a standalone thing without compiling it. So that's why the Go community came up with Go Analyze. And what Go Analyze does, it basically takes those two packages, shoves them into here, and then this bit gives you the really nice CLI. It gives you all the flags. It allows you to plug your linter into any linter aggregator you will use. So in our case, we have this Noslip Linser, which literally checks for the usage of time.sleep. And all of these bits are generated by the Go Analyze package. And you don't have to set up any of the flags whatsoever. You literally go with, this is the linter name, this is what the linter does, and then the implementation within it, which we'll talk about in a second. And this linter is a courtesy of Elliot Williams, who's sitting down here, and he has a talk today at 2 p.m. 2:45, even better. And it's a really good talk, and go listen to him because he knows more stuff than I do. So the custom linters. The linter itself literally requires you to define one function, which is run. And as you can see, it looks for a pass. So what we did, we've established a filter that goes throughout the code, and this is only the bits that it will take. So the AST will allow you to pick anything that you need within your linter. in our case, we wanted only the expression. We wanted only the call from the package of a certain name. So then we're running the pass. As you can see, we just we do the filter, we do the call expression, and then we check if our selected expression, and we check if the actual name is time, and if the selector name is sleep. And if that happens, if those two things happens, we tell from the linter within, hey, time.sleep detected. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. You can do a linter which will tell you, hey, this string is gibberish, if the string is gibberish. You can do whatever. It's not as sexy as generics, but it's really interesting. So, yeah, custom linters are really easy. Do them nicely, because all the lint things, and say they so, this really won't work. Turn the lint off, I'ma go home. And I've heard the third line really many times. So, sum up, we know what linters do and what are the benefits of linters within your team are. We know how to configure them. We know about the pain theory, which I really recommend to use when you introduce linters within your team. We know how to write the basic configuration within Golang CI lint. And I forgot to say, but don't use the default setup because you don't know what's inside. And if you're fetching, like if you have a production code base and you're fetching something from the internet, the security will come and ask you, what the hell is that? Why do you want a package from the internet that hasn't been vetted? Think the same with linters. Maybe you have a linter which, by fixing your code, will send stuff into Kazakhstan or another really bad place somewhere in the world or outside the world. So write your own configuration, and then I will tell you what we did with FormFree that made my team a bit mad at me. And we had, like, I'm Zohan, of course, and then the rest of it is my team. So the light stuff, we haven't went really far with stuff. We've started using GoFMT and GoThumped to make the code up to certain standard. Daniel Marty is also having a talk today. Go listen to him. He talks, I think, next after me. And he wrote a really great package with, it's like GoFMT, but on steroids. If you haven't used it, it's really good, and it's really annoying at certain points. Then we started using GoMND and GoConst. GoMND is checking for all the magic numbers within your code. So if you have 42069 within your code, you have to explain why you have it. You can't go, yeah, I have 2137 in my code, and in 10 years' time, nobody understands what the number was. And then we started using GoConst. So if you have a string within your code base that's repeated many times, you also have to make a constant out of it. And then if it changes, you change one place instead of many places. Yay, good stuff. And then the max pain bits, there's only 2 of them, and I will speak directly to the camera. FormFree, Euro team, if you're watching this, I'm really sorry about that, because we had many conversations about those 2. And the one is, like, there's both readability things. The quality bit is easy and nice. The security bit, well, you have to adhere to it. And then you have my 2 top favorites, like top 2 linters that I found, which is WSL, which literally forces you to have a white space within your code blocks, so you can't have this nasty 20-line functions with no white spaces in. But if you have a return statement, it can only be connected to the return of the function. Or if you have a function that returns an error and a variable, the error can be connected to the function, but then you have to have a white space, and then you can work on the variable if you return it, which is, well, you might think it is annoying. It is annoying, yes, but then if you have to read your code somewhere, you have really nice breaks, and your mind can go, okay, here's the error, it has been returned. or I've done something with it. I hope you handle your errors. And then I can do the next bit. And then the second bit, if you're coming from Python, you know, my man, I think you know what I'm about, yeah? If you're coming from Python, the Python best practice tells you that the length of a string within your code has to be of maximum 79 characters. And if it's more, do the next line. So we've set up in FormFree the LLL to 120 characters. And you might think, well, that's not much. Yes, but then at the same time, it actually forces you to think, if the name of the function, which is called, this is a really nice function that does this and this and this and that, and these are the parameters, and I'm returning 47 things, or like 2 things, doesn't matter, you have to actually think, how can I make it more readable? And in FormFree case, we believe in integration tests more than anything else. We want to test if our platform works up and wide. But at the same time, we write tests in a way that if you open the test file, you can read the test and you understand exactly what the test is doing. So you have test underscore. This is the payment test that will be used if the parameters are this and this and that, and this is what it does. So you can understand why my team went, because this is what they did. And I've seen this linter turned off at this stage around 8 times, and every time we just bring it back and we go, guys, can we change the name of the function or like override it, but just here? If it has to be long, if it makes sense for the name of the function to be this long, go and override the linter and tell me, hey, this has to be readable by a human being, not by a robot. So we won't be using LLL. But if it's your own code base, or if we're writing a function, this is not that bad. Really. It hurts, but just a teeny tiny bit, the maximum pain bit. So this is how we went in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and we tried to make it nicer. So what's next for FormFree in terms of linters? So we started thinking, okay, we have linters from the internet, vetted, we started using them. But then, what if we'll start doing what Uber did a few years back with Uber Guide to Go, which we probably used at one point or another, and we would use it as a linter. So what if we will write, hey, this is how we write code at FormFree, but as a linter. The issue is, if you're using linter, right now the current implementation doesn't allow you for soft fails. You actually have to, you either lint or die trying. But what we want to do, we want to have a linter that will go, hey, mate, this is 121 characters. Maybe let's change it, or maybe let's stack those parameters within the function somehow. Let's make it nicer. You know, just like, we're trying to think about the longevity of the code, we're trying to think about the quality of the code, but at the same time, we're thinking about the developer experience, which is often overlooked. And especially in the distributed company as we are, because we are basically around the world soon, or if not now, I reckon. We're also hiring, so contact me. But yeah, like, we're trying to make engineers better and to work things nicer. And I'm really happy that you come to my talk, which was about linters, not generics, no sync atomic. I'm really happy for Matt Wright to butcher my name. So go lint your code base is clean.